Hello, welcome to my January reviews. If you're new, every month I do sort of a wrap up of everything I've consumed and experienced and talk about what I thought of it. And for this year, what I'm going to do is at the end of my favourites, also tack on my 1 second a day. It used to be 2 separate videos, but it was just taking up too much space, to be honest. As in, too much of my time. I've got too many videos. And I do a full video at the end of the year anyway, or usually at the start of the next year, of my entire 1 second a day for the whole year. So I figured this might work. We'll see how it goes. I've got a long list this month, which has really surprised me because it has been busier than I was expecting. But let's just crack on with it, I guess. So to begin with, my biggest category this month is movies, and we've got eight movies. So first of all, the first Deadpool. Now, I was really worried about watching this because I am a very sort of like, I suppose, innocent or clean kind of gal. I don't like swearing. I don't like dirty stuff. You know, I'm very sort of, I don't know what the right word is. I don't like R-rated films generally. I'm pretty sure this one's R-rated. Maybe it's M or whatever the one before it is. But I'd heard that it was, you know, a very sweary film. But actually, I really enjoyed this. I loved the breaking of the fourth wall and like all those quips. And I liked the characters. I can't say I loved them, but I liked them. And I was able to follow the story. Like it worked for me. So the next one then is called Red One, which was, I think, a Christmas film that I watched with my cousins. And I can't say I loved it. I feel like there was a lot I didn't enjoy about it, but I don't know why. I don't think it was a bad film. I think I just didn't love the characters, maybe. There was something about it that I didn't quite love. Now, I'm actually going to stop because I've just had a message from my mum and I've not had a chance to speak to her, and I won't have a chance to speak to her if I don't speak to her now for another week. So I'm going to give her a call and I will come back later, hopefully. All right, we're back. So on to movie number 3. This is one that I put a big question mark next to, and it is Baywatch. Again, I watched this while I was babysitting, and even just that I was a bit unsure of. But the kids had said they watched it before, so who knows? This was not a movie I enjoyed. In theory, I liked the concept of it, the sort of mystery detective kind of work, but I didn't like all the body stuff, shall we say, and like the obsessiveness over the body. I just don't enjoy things like that at all. So that's my stand on that film. Next, back to our sort of Marvel X-Men-y things. We watched X-Men Apocalypse, which honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, I can't remember very much of it. If I'm remembering correctly, if this is the movie that I think it is, I do think I really enjoyed it, although I did get confused about when it was happening in the timeline. I think that's my biggest problem with a lot of the X-Men films, is that I just lose track of the chronology of it. But I did enjoy it. Then we watched Logan, which I feel like I can't remember much of this. I remember how it ended, and I think I remember one other sort of main plot line, but I feel like a lot of this was a blur. I do think I enjoyed it overall, but I don't think it was my favourite. Then we watched Deadpool 2, which I did enjoy. I think I enjoyed the first one more, but honestly, I can't remember much of what happened in the second one. I feel like this one's sort of gone from my memory a little bit. Yeah, I can't really remember, but I do remember enjoying it, and I remember after it finished saying to my friend, I liked this, but not as much as the first. So that's how I feel about that one, I guess. Now, slightly different, whole different area, genre, everything. I watched the film Operation Mincemeat. I don't think I even knew there was a film, and then I was babysitting for kids who were already asleep, and I was just looking on their Netflix for something to watch, and this came up, and I thought, I liked the musical, let's see what the movie's all about. And I like Colin Firth as an actor, so, you know, already 2 good points. And I did enjoy it, and it was interesting to see both the similarities and the differences in the film and the musical. But I think this always happens to me. Once I've seen a musical version of something, any other version isn't going to be as good, usually. The same happened to me with Heathers, which is actually based off the film. It's not like the film was just made about a true story. But I already knew so much of the musical that the movie just all I felt was I'm missing the songs. So that's kind of how I felt about this one. And then finally, we watched Wolverine and Deadpool and Wolverine, whatever it's called. The third Deadpool movie, and I loved this. Again, I was so worried because I'd heard it was quite, you know, R-rated. And don't get me wrong, I don't enjoy the swearing one bit, but I loved the movie. again, the self-digs and the breaking the fourth wall and all that, I just love it. And I could follow this story, it feels like a rare occurrence in Marvel that I'm actually able to follow the story. And don't get me wrong, again, there were moments and characters especially that I was like, we're supposed to know who this is. But overall, I really enjoyed it. And it brought in some other Marvel things because obviously they could now. And yeah, I enjoyed that a lot. All right, we made it through the movies. On to TV shows. I've got 3. Number 1 was Taskmaster Season 18, because we finally got to catch up on that one. Number 2 is the Big Fat Quiz of the Year 2024. I always enjoy watching that at the end of the year. I say always, I think last year was the first time I watched it. But I enjoy those kinds of reflective year funny things. And then number 3, oh my goodness, was a TV show called Departure, which I'd never heard of before. And again, it just came up on Netflix and it just looked like it was right up my street. And it was. There was mystery, there was like detective work, there were interesting characters, plot twists, unexpected things. Like, I just really enjoyed it. Although I have to say, for the first season, towards the end, or in the final episode, there were still things I didn't fully understand and didn't quite get. And I don't know if I missed something earlier in the show or if it just wasn't super clear. I don't know. But there was definitely something that happened that I felt like it was unfinished. And when I realised there was a season 2, I kind of presumed that would explain it. And it didn't. Season 2 had more or less nothing to do with season 1. But I did really enjoy the show. On to books. We've got 5, which is quite decent considering I started the year off with a very long book and it took me some time to get into or finish. But the first book I read is one that has been on my reading list, I would say, for about 10 years, and it was Wicked by Gregory Maguire. I wanted to read this as soon as I saw Wicked 10 years ago in London. In fact, I think it was more than 10 years ago. In my head, I think it was March 2014, so almost 11 years ago. But I wasn't willing to purchase it, and it was a big, hefty book. And I was in school and I didn't know if I wanted to commit to it. And I'd heard it was really dark. I knew that it was dark. I was still willing to sort of delve my fingers into it. I really think I was going for the expression dip my toes there, but I just don't think I quite made it. But anyway, finally, because of the movie, they've released an audiobook. I don't know if that's why, I think it must be. And after being on the waiting list for a little while, I was able to get it. Luckily, it wasn't too long, actually. I thought the waiting list would be longer. Now, first of all, it wasn't as dark as I was expecting it to be. It was dark, don't get me wrong, and there were things that were quite gruesome and intense, but it wasn't as horrible throughout as I thought it would be. The equivalent of the second act of the musical is so unbelievably different in the book, and that was really interesting, but also, to me, it was kind of a shame because I love what they've done in the musical. And again, maybe this is one of those things where I should have read the book first, and usually I do say that anyway, but maybe I would have enjoyed the book more if I wasn't expecting things from the musical to happen and waiting for sort of moments that, I know should happen. But I did love getting more of the backstory and sort of seeing things that happened. But I don't want to spoil anything, but my one main takeaway, I think, from reading the book compared to the musical is, in the musical, Elphaba is a much more likeable character and you have a lot more sympathy for who she becomes. And I feel like in the book, from the get-go more or less, you just kind of, I anyway found I had less sympathy for her. So that's interesting. But then also, like, maybe villains should just be villains, and like there's that whole discussion to have as well. But yeah, I did enjoy it. Do sort of tread with caution because it is, there should be an age limit on it, I would say. But I am really glad I finally got to read it. And for the next 4, they're all part of a series, and I'm reading the 5th book at the moment, but that's February. And it's Noughts and Crosses, Knife Edge, Checkmate, and Double Cross by Mallory Blackman. Now, I'm going to find it hard to distinguish between each of these because I read them one after the other and sort of gobbled them up. I don't think they're very long either. I think they're all about sort of 5 or 6 hours on audio. I think the first one was my favourite of those 4. I think Checkmate was the one that I liked least, I think. Or maybe Knife Edge. No, I think Checkmate. This is a series that's actually also been on my list for many, many years, like since I was in school as well, and I just never got my hands on them, and now I have. And actually what's really funny is I read these in January, and literally I think the last week of January, they've announced that Noughts and Crosses is coming as a play to London, which is very cool. For those who don't know, Noughts and Crosses is basically set in a modern world where the noughts are white people and the crosses are people of colour, but the crosses are the ones who are in power and sort of, the reverse of like slavery in the 50s and all that. One thing that's really interesting, and maybe I shouldn't be admitting this, but when I'm reading the book, when they refer to the crosses, I still imagine that they're white, and vice versa for the noughts. And I don't know if that's an ingrained sort of prejudice or, stereotype that I hold, or if it's because I know it's based on sort of the reverse of history, and in history, that was the way it was. And, in some societies and places still is, which is very much a problem. I want to believe it's the latter because I don't want to see myself as someone who is prejudiced or stereotypical or makes stereotypes. But it's a very interesting sort of thought experiment and challenge. I do think, as I said, this is a book that was on my list when I was in school, and I do think it is a young adult fiction, although I really don't know what the age demographic is meant to be, because there are scenes in the books that I'm like, I don't think a school kid should be reading this. But equally, I do feel it's written very sort of over-explained, and everything is sort of made so clear to you. There's no room for interpretation, and there's no subtlety about anything, in my opinion. And I kind of find that a little bit annoying, because there'll be a sentence and it'll be like, okay, I can understand what they're implying here. And then the character sort of says out loud what it's implying. And I'm like, I don't need you to explain that to me. But again, I think that just depends on the age demographic it's meant for. And I guess it is important that kids read these kinds of books and sort of see, how stupid it is that there is sort of a racial imbalance, shall we say. So yeah, it's been a very interesting series to read. I can't say I love it, but it is interesting. Anyway, I feel like I've been chatting about the series for a while now, so let's move on to my next category, which is musicals, and it's just one. I actually thought we were going to get through January without seeing any musicals, and I was kind of sad about that. And then very last minute, we got tickets for Operation Mincemeat, which I had seen last year, I think in June or something, but my friends who I went with had not. And I'd actually recommended it to them at the time. Now, I have vlogged it, and I think I've vlogged sort of the experience of watching it with them. But I did really enjoy it a second time round. It's a really fun production. And then last but not least, a video game. And this is one that I saw because of Dan and Phil. That's how I found out about it. They played it. And I said to my friend who's been really trying to get me into gaming, and so far has been completely unsuccessful, I said to them, this might be a good gateway into it. And it is It Takes Two, and I've really been enjoying it. We didn't play, I only played with them while I was in Ireland, so we only played for a couple of days and we definitely didn't finish it, but I very much enjoy it, and I hope that at some point soon we can continue playing. Now finally, every month I finish on a song of the month, and some months there are some songs that have just been in my brain or been sung by me all month. This month that is not the case, and I really had to search for a song to be my song of the month. But in the end, I've gone with Een doodgewone jongen from Kinderen voor Kinderen, I think it was 25 years. And it's just a song I feel has come up a lot in my playlist, because even though I've got over 1,000 songs, there's always about 10 that just get repeated. And I don't think I ever skip this one, which I feel is very telling. So yeah, those are my favourites or reviews of the month. Let me know if you've seen or read or any of these things, and what you thought of them, and also if there's any recommendations for the next month or the months after. And now you can enjoy my 1 second a day of the month of January. See ya!
Royal family.